The other way that I can guarantee that all of the columns of data necessary to support a reusable workflow are present is to create a content type and then tie my reusable workflow to that content type. I'd like to create a workflow that we can tie as part of our new hire process, that after we've onboarded somebody back in the HR department, they can set up the 30-day, 90-day, and 180-day evaluations for this employee as soon as we've hired them. We know it needs to be done. We can start a clock ticking, and this workflow can do all of the things that we need to do. So I want to create a reusable workflow that can be used by anybody who's hiring folks, even for vendors or for contractors. We don't necessarily need to do this only with employees. But in order to do this, I need to have some information. Now, I would always first go to content types and go take a look, but the content type that's here, that's the person contact type, there's contact and there is East Asia contact. And they both have really similar information in their content types. They have last names and first names, all of the things that you expect in an Outlook contact, but they don't have something that we need, and that is we need to be able to capture the hire date. So I'm going to show you how to create your own custom content type that we can then use with a workflow for employees. So we're going to create our basic employee content type. So we've clicked content type here under site objects, clicked new content type, and we're going to call this employee. And if we look at the descriptions for these, it's like create a new basic page, fill out this form, create a link, and so on. So that's the type of description. So this is enter information about an employee. That kind of fits. Now, what we want to do is select parent content types. So there are groups. Notice custom content types, document content types, folder content types. I'm actually going to use the contact content type as my starter for this. So that is part of the list content types. Now, if I didn't know that, I could have scrolled the list that you see here and found it. But it's not a document, it's not a folder, and it's not a group. And list is just about everything that's not a document, actually. Because look at all the lists. These are the things that you're used to working with here in SharePoint Designer. So there's my contact. And then it says, where should it keep this? Where should it sort it into? Well, I could make a case, actually, for putting this down where we found it just now, which is under the list content types. That makes it sort of traditional and hierarchy. I could make a case for that. I'm going to keep it under custom for right now. And I could also set up a new group, and this is an unusual, that would be named for my organization. Here are the 2 Trees olive oil content types. They're different than everybody else's, and we could put our own custom types there instead of putting them with these. You might wonder how these custom content types got here, because we haven't created them before. And the answer is they've been created for us by SharePoint whenever we've gone in and said, well, let's create a workflow, but it needs a particular column there. So I don't necessarily want the things I create intentionally to be here. I've just talked myself into creating a new group. So here are the 2 Trees olive oil content types that we created intentionally, exactly like I'm going to show you right now. That'll work. Where will I find these? The answer would be in alphabetical order, and T comes last. So let's go open up the employee type and edit the content type columns. And here are all the columns that I got because I based this on contact. They're all here. But I need to be able to add a hire date. This is the part that feels a little difficult because I'm not allowed just to add a free form anything. If I want to add a column, it needs to exist in the collection of site columns. If I click and say, well, let me look for something like a hire date, you'll find that it's not there. There's no hire date. There's no onboarding date. So the answer here isn't to give up. The answer is to go add a new site column. So let's go to Site Columns and create a new column. And you click the drop down and it asks you what type of data we'll have. And this is going to be a date and time column. And this date and time column is going to be called hire date. And this is going to be an employee, contractor, or supplier. And so with an employee, we'd call that a hire date, or contractor or supplier startup date. Now it's asking where we want to find it. Well, here's the core contact and calendar items, and that's exactly where I'd like it to be. I could also choose to create a new group that was Two Trees Olive Oil columns, but I don't feel a need to do that. This system of sorting works really well for me, combined with the ability to search. So let's just go ahead and say OK. And notice here's our new hire day column. Now that it exists in the site collection, I can use it. But first, notice here's the asterisk that shows me I haven't saved my work yet. Let's go ahead and save. And that's what will get it saved to the site columns collection. Now I'm going to click on my employee tab so I can edit that. I'm going to add an existing site column, and this time when I search for the word hire, there it is, and I can go ahead and add this. In a similar way, I could add any other column that I need to have present in this particular content type, and I can also remove things if I don't want them. I don't have a need, for example, to have an employee web page. I don't necessarily have a need to have some of these other fields. But when I have my employee all set up the way I would like to have it set up, that looks pretty good here. I'm going to go ahead then and save this. And now I've created a new employee content type that is going to be available anytime that I want to have all of those fields together to create a list or library or to support a reusable workflow.